Hello and welcome to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past and talk about their impact and relevance today. I'm Tim Longo Jr., and I'm joined, as always, by a man who is still digging up graves to complete his collection of singing pottery.
Brett Duville. Yes, I am. I've got
And apparently,
so many gyroids.
I nailed that one because it's gotten even worse.
I have probably 15 of them now. It's around that number. I don't actually keep track, but they all make their unique noises. And if you get bunches and bunches of them together, you have like a little Gyroid Orchestra, which is really my name for Animal Crossing. It's my little Gyroid Orchestra. That's how I think of it.
They're also in certain categories, right? Like they're sort of sets that are...
They have names and they are decorated similarly, but they'll be like different heights. So it'll be the same one, but it'll actually be a different size. Like there's a tall version of this other one and things like that. So
it's like different keys. So I think if you get like 3 or whatever of the set, and you put them, if you only had those 3, they would all kind of play together very nicely, I think, right?
Yeah. The whole set plays together nicely, I have to say. There's kind of it's a very calming rhythm. As I mentioned, we're playing Animal Crossing. We're in the 3rd week, and things are progressing nicely. I gather you've paid off your second mortgage.
I have, yes. As I mentioned last episode, I've been playing in a ridiculous way, being very like goal-oriented and speeding through, mainly because of, we have limited time that we're going to play this. It's meant to be played over a long period of time, but also I wanted to kind of see, because what ends up happening, which we can probably talk about a little bit, is, those, and I'm kind of cheating because I knew this from playing before, but those mortgages that you pay off essentially trigger certain things to happen because Nook expands, right? And I'm thinking in retrospect, I didn't really realize this at the time playing it in the past, of course, because we weren't really thinking about it in this way. Maybe this is sort of an obvious statement, but if you were to play sort of normally, which is more like how you're playing, just casually doing whatever you want to do, as you are expanding and learning what is possible to do in the game, and sort of maybe visitors come or what have you, you're slowly paying off those mortgages. And then as you're doing that, you're essentially getting sort of more verbs to use, more items in Nook's shop. Like as an example, when you pay off the mortgage I just paid off, and you get the the bigger store as well as a bigger house, in his shop he will now have paint that you can buy to paint your roof if you want to change the color, but that is also random like everything else. So what color what color's there that day will be, may not be the one you want. Then also he has signs that you can now buy, like the signposts you see. So you can put a sign out, and write something on it in the world, like the signs that you see, around that were there from the beginning. So those are just examples of, and then, when we both paid off the first mortgage, you had, not only do you have more furniture that'll be available and more items there, but things like the axe will start showing up, right? So you have this new verb that pops up. So it's sort of like
his shop might be tied to time more than it is to mortgage, because having not paid off the mortgage, he's got the sort of quickie mart style shop for me as well now, even though I haven't paid off that second mortgage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that might be true. Then it definitely was triggered by the mortgage for me. So it must be time or mortgage if you speed through like I'm doing. But yeah, it's interesting so then the mortgage is not linked to it. So you have essentially the white building where has a sliding door.
The box. Yeah. The box store.
Right. Yeah. So then it's not the link to the mortgages per se, but I'll just focus on the point of, I love the fact that, his expansion is sort of like, that's how they're sort of gating, whether that's time-based or paying off mortgage-based, that they're gating. You're essentially, like I was saying, it's a stealth training, right? Like they're expanding the game without you realizing they are, because part of your daily loop will always be going to his shop. Most people, because unfortunately, for better or for worse, the game is about capitalism in many ways. So you're going to be selling things. You're going to be, you're going to be going to see what he has to offer. And
although I will say it's like an interruption too in the routine though, because he closes for the day. And I remember getting the letter in my mailbox that he would be closed for renovations. And I was like, well, what am I I can't do all the things I normally do, right? I can't go.
Yeah, totally.
I had been doing a lot of fishing, and I had been, trying to get red snapper, which generally sell for a good high number of bells from him and things like that. So I had been doing a lot of that just as part of my normal loop. And I'm like, well, I can't carry lots of extra stuff. And it seems like with fossils, you can only get so many fossils identified per day. So I ended up having a bunch of fossils. So I didn't do my digging early. It changed my whole day.
Yeah.
It's a whole change in perspective, much as, being sheltered in places.
I was just going to say, we're literally seeing that happen right now. What if, yeah, so I did make a note of this from last episode, and I don't think we talked about it, but, try, which maybe this happens to you because you generally play in the evening. Try playing at night, not even the evening, but at night, because that's the first time I could play, having him being in his remodeling phase. So he was closed and it's raining. And at the time, I don't think I even had a fishing pole yet. So literally, because rain basically means, right, that there are few, if any, insects around. So you can't go after insects. It's at night. So that cuts off certain things. And then it's when it's rain. And then I didn't have I didn't have the fishing pole. So as far as verbs that I had to do,
it's pretty minimal. You could talk to people and hope that they had things to deliver around, basically. Yeah. But even that might start filling up my inventory, right? I mean, that's the issue is you start running out of space for stuff. And it's like, oh, this person wants this thing delivered. Well, that's great. But yeah. So
yeah. Well, and managing inventory is a whole art form in that game as well. That's actually a topic in pre-show we forgot to mention that we didn't talk about last time. I keep calling it, I don't think this is a real term, but I keep calling it sort of like inventory value. And one thing I remember in this game, and it's coming back to me like a brick wall, this time hitting me like a brick wall, is I'm just you assign sort of this unofficial value to things due to your inventory issues. And so an example I'll give is I just don't deal with shells anymore. And I haven't for a while because they don't deserve to be in my inventory.
They don't have a lot of value for sure. Yeah.
And so you kind of have this hierarchy.
Certainly not Wentel traps or porcellettas.
No, scallops.
Worthless. White scallops. White scallops are good. Coral's not bad.
Coral's okay.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? There's certain, so because I'm sure it was obviously a very intentional decision for them, but it's fascinating, always fascinating to me to see how inventory systems are designed, because whether maybe you could offer the perspective of its memory concerns or something like that. But whenever you have a limited inventory like that, and RE4 is always, Resident Evil 4 is always an example people bring up when it comes to inventory management. You start having this sort of meta game of what deserves to be in my inventory for any number of minutes, and you combine that with your sort of your traveling loops. It's well, I'm going to go down here, so I better bring this with me, but leave this thing because I'm, so there's all these little things that you start maximize. At least I do, maximizing my game, and certain things just don't make it in there. And to
I just carry stuff around and just run around willy nilly. My loops are pretty
haphazard,
unstructured. Yeah. I mean, I basically, I get the mail. So the first thing, I mean, in general, my day goes, I get out of the house and I get my mail and I look at the fossils and I read the letters. So the day that Tom was closed, I was like, well, I'm not even going to open the letters because normally I get the presents and I open them first. But I check any mail that I get that is not from the museum first, and I was lucky I did because it said his shop would be closed. So I was like, oh, phew, well, good thing I knew that, because now I won't take the presents out of the mail. I'll just leave them in the mail. They'll just sit there, and therefore they won't take up inventory slots if they're ones that I would sell to him, because I've already donated them. So it ended up being like, oh, I'm going to use this sort of side, this exploit of using these letters over here to get the present to put, So you can actually expand your inventory that way if you want.
Right, with letters. Yeah, that's the pro tip there first thing I do most days is write letters to the museum and just have them open, and then as soon as you get the fossil, you just put it in there.
You write exclamation points to the museum?
Yep. Just one exclamation point. Literally, that's what I'm not lying. It's just, exclamation point. You better identify this fossil, folks. I think this game is revealing a lot about the difference between the two of us in some ways.
I think it may be.
Yeah.
I write a letter. Every letter I write is unique.
Wow, that's amazing. That's attention to detail. That's good. I am about zeroing in on the most efficient.
Well, you are playing 3 Animal Crossings.
Yeah,
I'm just playing the one.
That's fair. And there's a downside to that, because I think this game is all just very much about the way you're playing. It's that joy of just living in the sim of it. Even though it's fairly simple, but there's some depth there. But it's just such a delightful game for that. And I do sometimes kick myself because I feel like I'm not really enjoying it. The funny thing about paying off my second mortgage, which is a funny statement in and of itself, is as soon as I did that, because that was sort of my main goal that I wanted to do for the cast, I definitely felt a sense of relief and just tension just leave my body. And I noticed I started to just kind of be more random about what I did with my day. So I still have a couple routines, but generally I'm kind of just, do I feel like fishing? Do I feel like doing this and that? But I think it's so funny how that inventory system has, like the other thing, when the second one came out, a really big deal that was way bigger than it should have been. But the concept of stacking fruit in one inventory slot was introduced, and that was blowing people's minds. It was just ridiculous. So I actually wanted to ask you.
That changes everything, though.
It does. No, it does. That's what I mean. Like they're
because that'll ramp up the capitalism in a big way. Because a lot of why I've planted a small orchard of maybe 6 trees or something like that right next to the store, and then I have a secondary orchard starting to go with my second fruit that I got from a villager, and we'll talk about that in a little while. I've got those going, but if I could stack the fruit.
Mm-hmm.
I would have planted a ton, because there'd just be the one stop. I just stick it all on one stack. Mm-hmm. I'd be all around the trees in the orchard, and then once every few weeks or once every few days or whatever, when the fruit came in, I would just fill the whole thing and go and sell it all.
Yeah,
and I can't do that. Yeah,
that's what I mean. That's why I get so. It's so dumb, but it's so appropriate for the podcast, so I don't mind talking about it because it's so dumb. But it's like I geek out so much about this kind of design, especially like one simple decision, which in retrospect you think, why didn't they stack fruit? That's so obvious. They stack the tickets, they stack raffle tickets, why couldn't they? And so you think, okay. And I wanted to ask you, maybe there's a technical reason, but I doubt it.
No, there's nothing different about them. So there's really no reason. It's just a number.
Right. So that was a decision, right? That's a design decision to essentially limit, right, a certain loops, right, and certain, like you said, certain economical sort of structures, and like what you can accomplish in a certain day or time or minute when you're going back and forth ferrying fruit to Tom. And so that was a decision, and then everyone freaked out because they were so excited that fruit was finally going to stack. But the repercussions of that, are, it's just so funny because all they have to do is fool with the economy, and it doesn't, in the end, it doesn't really change anything. But it's a perception.
You know what they say? You have to be careful about, what you incentivize. I mean, it does. It would change my behavior, I guess is my point, right? Is that it would make me plant more trees. Now I'm kind of happy with, okay, 3 trips. That's fine. I'll do 3 trips. But if it were 1 trip, as many trees as I want, I would have planted a lot more trees. Like now I just have the 6 or whatever. And so I'm like, that's fine. That's enough. Like it's not that much money or many bells or whatever, but it's fine. It's a tiny little orchard. It's cool.
Yeah. So. Well, what are the repercussions of, at one point in life, you had to go to the bank to get cash and then go to the store and give the person the cash, and then you get the item that you needed, versus now we use our thumb or our face to click on a link and then the money is sent somewhere in the background from our house, or our toilet or something,
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a pandemic on. Do not click your phone with your face.
No, don't touch your phone to your face. Anyway. It's
no,
just
I know. Yeah, it does. It changes.
Convenience changes behavior. I think you said it. You hit the nail on the head. So I just love that stuff, and it's I had forgotten actually until we started playing about the sort of, because I've been playing the modern versions for so long, and I just didn't even think twice about that stuff. And don't even get me started on this, the rules they're sort of breaking with the mobile version. Where inventory is almost like a hidden thing in a menu someplace that you barely even, worry about. So it's just so funny that these sort of simple decisions can have such big repercussions on, like you said, on your behavior, on your loop, on what you spend your time doing. So
now that you've paid off that second, first of all, do you have a third mortgage?
Yes.
Okay. Because you add a second. Yeah, so you add a second floor or something, right? At that point or something?
You get a choice. He gives you a choice. Do you want to make your current house bigger or do you want a basement?
Okay.
And so I chose to make it bigger because I didn't want to go up and downstairs.
Okay. Sure.
Because it's less efficient.
Of course. That's you. Does that continue? Will you have another opportunity, or is that it?
I don't remember. I think you can expand the basement maybe after that.
So it's possible to just keep going, but that's a lot of bells, man. I don't know if I've got the stamina for another 400,000 bells these days. I had forgotten how much it ramps up, and when I saw that price tag, I was like, I'm out. This is it. We're going to be collecting a lot of... This is my forever home now. Yeah. So you have then moved on more to the collection mechanics.
Yeah, and why I said I think I'm enjoying the game more now is because, like you've been doing, I'm kind of just, what do I feel like doing today? One of the things I mentioned, I think last episode, is I am a collector, as people probably know from listening, and so I do like that aspect of the game, especially the museum, which not every Animal Crossing has really had. Well, the Pocket one, let's see, doesn't, but anyway, I like the museum representation of collection, because it's so physical and it's presented in a realistic fashion, real in-world fashion, like everything is in the game. And so I'm focusing really on blathers now. So because fossils are a great way to get cash, each day. And so I was selling everything.
I mean, I don't know, but
yeah, okay, you don't know, but that's how I paid off everything so quickly. So now I'm just filling out that museum, and that's been fun. So a lot of my focus is really just filling every slot in my catalog to see how far I can get.
For me, and I got to remember to look at the catalog because I keep forgetting that that's a thing. Because I don't ever buy anything from Tom Nook. I mean, it's very rare that I even do that. I normally will buy like some paper because there isn't any in the dump or whatever, and so I'm out of paper to write to the museum. That's basically what I use it for. Like I said, some of my habits in life are kind of spilling over. But I go and bring fossils every day. And one of the things that's happened for me is that my insect collection is growing extremely slowly. I have maybe 6 insects, something like that, because I only ever play basically at the same time of day.
Yeah,
and
right.
there aren't many insects out. Right, there might be a mosquito. Like most nights, I see a mosquito and maybe a cockroach. And it's only
Yep.
on the weekends when I play at 2 or more like 2 o'clock that I get the butterflies and things like that. But even then, it's the same butterflies. So it's not. I don't know. I think this is a thing where we are for next week going to play with the system clock more, and I'll probably start just directly experimenting with, okay, what about 9 a.m.? What about 11 a.m. and things like that to try to get more stuff, more variety. And I'm sure the same is true of the fish, although I have a lot more fish. I have maybe half the fish, roughly.
I think so. I think it's time. Yeah, it's similar. It's time and season. I think both
Yeah.
influence it, and that's I think as a minor segue to we talked a little bit about appointment based gameplay last time, and sort of my thoughts that Animal Crossing may have influenced some of those early appointment based mobile games and web games, but it's an interesting. Like I was mentioning to Brett in pre-show, I haven't had Red visit me yet somehow for some reason, or I've just missed him. But I don't think he's come yet, which I'm surprised by because I thought he was supposed to come twice a week.
And
and
he does for me. Yeah.
Yeah, the animals usually kind of talk about it, and it's pretty advertised. He sends you a mail, so he's coming. So I know he's coming for me as we're recording tonight at 6:00. And this is the first time that I've set a goal for myself that I have to play at 6:00, but It is that kind of game that if you're playing for the podcast and you have your own schedule, so you're going to play at the times you need to play. But if you were somebody who was collection centric and you wanted to get that stuff, you're going to change your real life to focus on that. And that's how this game is. And it's just fascinating to me that it's the case, and listening to friends. I haven't really gotten into new seasons too deeply yet myself, but listening to friends, every time a new Animal Crossing comes out, it's just how much it dominates their day.
Dominates people's lives and days. Yeah. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of that. Was it Majestic or Majestic 12 or something
Majestic,
like that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't get me
in
going.
that it was. Oh, I know you're a big proponent. That is, it's that, except still not directly intruding into your life, right? So it's demanding of you specific commitments, but they are still you going to the machine rather than sort of being contacted.
It's more opt-in,
which is very Nintendo, right? I mean, Nintendo is really not about they're not about interrupting you. That may not be true with the mobile games. I haven't played any mobile games.
If you turn notifications on or not,
right? But yeah, for the most part, it just kind of, you show up and it, the world has changed to the degree that it's changed, and that's about it. I did notice I skipped a day, and I had more weeds. So the weeds seem to be a constant, a certain number of day or a certain range, perhaps a day. And I know it was noticeably different just missing one day. So it's very subtle. But I noticed it, right? So it's not so subtle I didn't notice it. I did notice, like, oh man, feels like there's weeds everywhere. There's probably one per map segment or something like that. But that felt like a lot compared with other days, where I might have 3 or 4, and this felt like a dozen. I don't know. It felt like it. Maybe I just felt guilty. Maybe it was the same number. I just felt guilty, and it felt like there was more. It's possible. So yeah, it's hard to know. But yeah, you had mentioned like the animals talking about Red coming, and how the different ways the animals basically work to enliven the world, right? I mean, certainly we visit with them and we do errands for them and get and sometimes get things from them in return. I got an apple. I also kicked the ball to someone. That's a whole part of a whole story I'll tell later. But you had asked last time, did you kick a ball to anybody? And I finally did, but only because of who it was.
Awesome.
But yeah, what other? So they announce things like Red is coming or whatever, or in my case, the fortune teller, Katrina. And you had said something about sort of replacing social interactions in pre-show. You want to go into that?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, so-called Animal Crossing, they're very much sort of the crux of the thing, but um, because they have chosen to make the game that we talked about this in the I think both first and second episode, make the game sort of very representational about what's going on around you as if it were a real sort of mini life sim. Even to the degree of like when you start your game or end your game from a loading in or saving your game, right? An animal is talking to you in a dialogue way about it, right? It's not a menu screen. It's somebody is in, in the black ether of of that room and saying like, do you want to save? Or welcome? Who are you? What's your name again? Oh yeah, I forgot. It's all very conversational. And similar to Nook's store upgrades that I mentioned earlier, they also are subtle sort of tutorializations, right? Because they will give you hints. Like for instance, one example. There's many examples that we probably both could pull from, but one example is one animal I was talking to last week talked about the fact that how cool it would be to have a tree that grew money. And, wouldn't that be neat? And so I love that example because it's a very subtle hint about something you can do that you may not have thought to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there's all ranges of subtlety to them, but they tell you about Katrina, they tell you about Red, they have commentary on Red, right? Like, this guy seems shady, and it's sort of, for me, it ends up feeling very social in a way, right? Because obviously they all have their own personalities that we've talked about, right? They've all different categories. Like Tom the cat, by the way, is a big jerk. Like I went into his house.
I have mine. Admiral is a jerk, so yeah.
I went into his house to kind of see if he had a quest for me or something, and he's like, "What are you doing in my house? I didn't invite you in here. Listen, jerk." I was surprised actually because I didn't remember him, but I feel like you can feel Nintendo wanting this game to be very social, right? And they just, at the time we didn't have the sort of infrastructure. There was some online stuff going on at this era, but it was very minimal.
Right.
And they've put in the whole memory card thing, right, where you can swap with your friends' memory cards, so you can go to their. So it's sort of like asynchronous social. But I just think the animals are a great replacement for that because they spent so much time. We talked about their facial expressions and their emotes and the little effects and visual effects and sound effects they have. And like we talked about, you can piss them off, right? And they won't talk to you for a while,
right?
So it all feels, and then they're also replacing announcements, notifications essentially, right? Both through sending you mail saying like, hey, such and such is happening, or this is coming, or when you talk to them, they'll say, hey, do you know that tomorrow is spring cleaning day? You should be ready for that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I've found that I can, I also had, I remember basically being introduced to the collecting of insects by one of the animals. I think it was Alli saying, "Oh, my boyfriend's into bugs, and could you bring me one?" I'm like, "Sure, your boyfriend. It's always your boyfriend, Alli. I've heard that before."
What's your boyfriend's name?
Exactly. Oh, he just lives in the next town, does he? Oh, I see. But yeah, so they say, "Oh, it's not me. I'm not. I guess maybe that's a female character thing. That it's not me. It's my boyfriend who likes the bugs." So they sort of introduced the idea that you could actually that's what that net is for and things like that. If you haven't bought one, which I don't think at that point I had. Not that that's not a fairly obvious thing. There's interface support for the insect collection in particular, but it's still reinforcement. The money tree is a great example. But also I've just been able to, because I put in the effort on Bertha, my passionate love affair by letter, I was able to see more in the simulation than I might have otherwise. I was able to read more into it. Now, so this is all me telling stories, but I did have basically, I had a day last week, maybe earlier this week, where I went to Bertha and she was like, "Oh, I'm bored." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. We should just hang out. We could hang out, Bertha." But she's like, "It'd be cool if I had a ball." I was like, "Oh, that's right. Tim had mentioned sometimes they want a ball." And so I went and got one and promptly kicked it into a lake by accident. I was like, "Oh, man."
Yeah.
So I went and found another one. And wouldn't you know it, I got it stuck in a doorway. So it got stuck and I couldn't get it out because there's like a little cutout for where their doors are to their houses. And if it goes into that square, you can't get it out. There's no way to get it out because you can't get behind it now because the house is in the way. Right. So I'm like kicking myself, and I went and I'm wandering around like maybe there's another ball somewhere else. And I finally got back to the ball, and the sim had pushed it out. Whether that had happened because somebody come in and out of the house, or I don't know why, but it was no longer at the house sometime later. So I finally got it over to where Bertha was, and she had gone somewhere else, and I couldn't find her, and she wasn't responding to the door. And I'm like, oh man, all this I did for Bertha, which is not a thing I would have done. In fact, that I can't remember if. No, I think it was, and then the next day I went and I found a ball that was down on the lower half. She's on the upper half, the elevated part of town. So I had to walk it up a hill to move it all the way across to map to her. And I finally gave it to her, and she's like, "A ball!" And that's the whole reaction. And I just thought that was hilarious. But I was like, it was such a moment of like, yes, I did it for my beloved. I brought the ball. And then that same day, Alli, the one with the boyfriend. So
Bertha, what kind of animal is Bertha?
She's a hippo.
Okay, and Alli is an alligator? Alligator,
yes. Okay. And Allie's like my boyfriend, yada yada yada. And she asked me to write her a letter. And I'm like, oh man. And so I wrote her a letter, but I was like, don't tell Bertha about this. I don't want her to be upset. And then, so there's that. And I just sent the letter and set that up. And then the following day where the story kind of ends is, Alli and Lily were near each other in Lily's area. And Lily's been she's a super cheerful type. She's a frog. She's very cheerful.
Lily's
and
great.
Lily's great. Yeah. And she and Alli were near each other, and they were having a conversation, and then they both got angry. And so I was reading into it that Lily had a thing for me, but found out that Alli got a letter and she didn't. And so now she was all mad and they're storming off. And then later that day, that theory was buttressed by the fact that I talked to her after she had calmed down, and I actually accidentally hit the no button on doing her request. Which most of the animals get all angry when you do that, but Lily didn't. Lily was fine with it, and so I could just take another one from her right away, and she was okay. So I think she's got a thing for me.
It's all about you. It all comes back to Lily's a kind heart. I feel like every Animal Crossing game I try to get Lily somehow to join my town because I just love having her around. That's a great story. I mean, we talked about it in one of these episodes with some comparisons with Civ, right? It's like you've created these narratives in your, simple-ish sim, right? Sim with these animals and replacing that social sort of drama that's coming up, but you have your own internal version of what's actually happening, and you're creating more than is actually there, which is great.
By far, yes.
It's a great time, right? Of that fact, and I have opinions about Tom specifically.
I wrote, so Admiral's such a jerk, right, for me, that he's just a nasty character. He's always saying mean things to me. He's like Tom. He's a bird, yeah. And he's also haughty, and he's just, I don't like him. I don't like him at all. But he asked for a letter. And I wrote, nobody likes you. Everybody hates you. You got to eat some worms because he's a bird. So
nice. Oh, what I thought you were going to say is you should leave.
No, I did not say that. I would not throw in. I'm not that kind of person.
Yeah, I forget. It's been a while with this game, but I think there are ways to, to essentially ask them to leave or to get them to leave the town. So new ones will come in, right? Because there are ways to do that. And it might be at certain time intervals that they, oh, I think actually Tangy, the cat that looks like an orange, I had never seen her before, and she's the weirdest character. Um, she had we had a dialogue because I talked to every animal both for quest and just the conversational option. There's two options for each animal. For the audience's sake, I talked to each animal every day, and one time she asked me if I thought she should move. I don't remember the exact conversation, but somehow it came up, and she's like, I'm thinking about moving, and I saw I have a friend in another town or something like that. And it's like, should I move? And, I assume if I
I have a friend in Outer Haven. It's cool
right,
over there.
Right.
I have a friend on Shadow Moses Island.
Yeah, Shadow Moses is right. Shadow Moses. But if I assume if I'd said no or yes, you should move, that she would have moved the next day. But,
yeah, sometimes I didn't. There was a point where I didn't actually know what I was doing. I mean, until I had done it, which was Tortimer showed up again. I don't know if he has for you.
Yeah, I know what you're about. I was going to ask you if this happened, but I bet.
Yeah, so he showed up and he was standing on one side of the river on the lower half, the lower half of the map, and I guess it's lower in both senses. It's lower on the screen, on the map screen, but it's also lower than the other part. And he was standing there, and he's like, "Yeah, people are complaining that it takes too long to get around or whatever. Do you think I should put a bridge here?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And of course, he put a bridge exactly there, and I didn't at the time realize like that, because the other option was something like "check with me later," I think, or something like that.
I'll think about it or something.
Yeah, or I'll think about it, right? And I didn't. It didn't even occur to me that's what was going on.
Yeah.
That I was actually modifying the place in that way, and that I might have chosen differently. Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, there are a couple places where I might prefer it. One of the bridges, there's a dock right near it, and I always turn to go across, and it's the dock, and then I'm like, I didn't go far enough. I mean, there is one that I would like to have another bridge as well. Maybe just an additional bridge would be helpful there. But it was funny because that was a very natural interaction that the consequences of which I had no idea were coming. So
yeah. I was going to ask you about this because I had the same thing happen, but because I knew what was going to happen, he was up in sort of like I was going to say uncharted area, but sort of an unused area, also uncharted, of the map that I don't really need or know animals go up there or whatever. And I saw him up there one day because I was looking for whatever, probably, fossils. And he was like, yeah, I'm thinking about putting a bridge here. And because I knew what was going to happen, I was like, no, dude, don't put a bridge here. This is a waste of a bridge.
Nobody goes here.
Nobody goes here. Not only that, but there's another bridge like not far south from here. If I could have, I would have told him that. And so I said, no.
This guy's terrible at urban planning.
Yeah, he's listening to the masses too much. So then I waited. I said no, and he didn't do it. And then I waited. And then just yesterday, he came back and asked in a really good spot. And of course, I said yes. And then obviously I played today, this morning, and the bridge is there finally. And what I had forgotten and didn't even fully comprehend is I have such a route that I do every day, because of the way that the structure is. And it totally blew me out of the water. I was like, wait a second, what? Yes, it's way more accessible now, but now my route's all messed up because I can actually shortcut. So it's so funny how that one thing, and that actually leads me to another topic I forgot to mention in pre-show, but really quickly, like, the amount of sort of discovery in this game and just like delightful discovery, because you don't, like you said, when you weren't sure what the conversation was really about. And there's so many, like, it's a really interesting game to think about how they developed it, because I would guess that I won't say a number percentage, but I would say a higher percentage of unplanned design came in out of this game than a lot of other games. And what I mean by that is
Yeah.
like, somebody just, they got it going, they got the sim going, and they're fooling around with things, and they have some core ideas, obviously a lot of the ones we've talked about, but then certain things come up and someone on the team probably just said, wouldn't it be neat if we could do this? And even say the bridges are an example, right? I'm obviously no evidence of this, but somebody might say, wouldn't it be cool to have like the world change a little bit and then have a bridge show up? Oh yeah, we could have Tortimer do it and blah, blah. These little organic ideas. Another example is, hey, I have a shovel and I know I can dig with that shovel, but what if I hit a rock with the shovel?
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Then it has, you obviously get a reaction.
Oh, yeah.
And what if some rocks, when I hit them, they actually have money coming out of them?
Oh boy.
And then it'd be like, wait, what? Why would we do that? Oh, it's fun. Let's try it. And then they do it. I don't know if you knew about that, but
I did not. No.
Oh, sorry, that was a spoiler.
That's okay. I will never find it. That's fine. I would have never found that.
Well, the thing is, it's a different rock every day. So,
is it really?
Part of my route is hitting all the rocks with shovels. And not only that, but
there goes old man Longo again, hitting all the rocks.
The funny thing, though, is that both of those concepts end up, especially it sounds like in New Horizons, like not only do they survive, but they sort of evolve, right? Because you can actually change the way your map, you can excavate in New Horizons, you can build bridges. In fact, the way that game starts, you're on a little sort of island surrounded by, at least the map I chose, surrounded by a river that's actually two rivers that sort of surround you. So you actually can't get to the whole map. So I'm assuming I actually have to build a bridge to get to the rest of the map some point. So it's like that little idea blossomed, and then rocks you can, destroy in other games and actually, deconstruct them. But yeah, so that little mini game, it's once you hit it once, the rock sort of turns red and then it starts fading out. And so you have to keep hitting it to like get more money out of it. But if you miss or, and it fades all the way back to gray, then you don't get any more money. So you can actually kind of mess it up. And then if you fully expend the money, then you get a little, the little sound from Mario when he picks up a coin plays.
Oh, ding.
Yeah. So it's a cute little kind of, Nintendoism there, but it's like, those are examples, of like, or like the money tree, right? Little things where it's like, that probably was an organic thing that just popped up, right? That over the course of development.
Yeah. The money tree is probably organic.
All right. Well played. It seems like the kind of game that once you get it going, it's just the ideas start coming.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really important to make a framework for these things and give your designers tools to go nuts. I mean, there's certainly limitations and concerns, especially the more limited the hardware, but fundamentally there's a lot of fun and joy in that stuff. And yeah, you're right. You want to empower as a developer, the creativity of your team, to do these things that anybody can shove something in. Having worked on games that are moddable as well, it's a delight to see what people do, whether it's just silly, weird stuff or something genuinely new and useful and interesting, from a narrative perspective or a systems perspective or what have you. So, yeah, it's a fun part of development.
I think another problem, obviously we have no evidence of this, but another example that I would guess that relates to your story you told is, I'm sure they thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to just put a ball in the world? Because it would be fun to just push it around. We have a little physics. We have some physics sim going on in certain places. And then, designers like, well, wouldn't it be cool if we had a quest that actually related to a ball where you had to actually bring the ball to somebody? And so it's just all that inner working. And then, it's just cool to see that stuff pop up. And the reason that I bring it up is I think the game, much more than I remember thinking of it this way when I played it to begin with, it is a game, though it's not like an exploration game, because obviously it's a very limited, tile set and town, and part of the point is getting to know it, so you kind of have your routes and you know where everything is. But it is kind of also a game about exploring, because you're exploring the systems and you're exploring what I can do with certain things, and what if I like, even if I and there's certain areas, certain layers of the game we're not even seeing, because we're not doing any of the social stuff of going to each other's. But you can take a bag of coins, and you can rebury that, not to grow a tree in the shining holes that have the
right that
but
you pull
you can
them out
bury
of.
it anywhere, and then it looks like a fossil. So if some friend came to your house, you could you could make your own mini game where you're burying treasure, and having them go find it or whatever, just for fun. There's the pitfall twos, which I forget how to make one of those. I think you maybe have to buy them later, but people can fall into little pits and you have to wiggle out of them.
Oh, really? Oh, I haven't seen that.
I fell into one. The animals will do them themselves. In fact, I had Liz, the alligator, on the billboard, or not the billboard, but the bulletin board, in the middle of the housing area. She put a little note up there saying, "I put a pitfall in XYZ coordinates, watch out." It's like, okay, Liz, thanks. And I think players can put them down too. I just forget how to do it.
Oh, wild.
Yeah, it's such a weird game. It's so funny. Oh, we haven't even talked about, have you done any customizing of your own clothing and stuff?
I have not. I did at one point. I bought a pattern. I think I bought like a rubber duck pattern so I could have an umbrella with rubber ducks on it. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the only thing I've done. And I have not tried to reprogram the music because I haven't figured out what notes, what scale it is, and how you do that. There's also, and that's actually maybe could touch over to the sort of apparatuses that we were talking about, sort of the additional hardware. I mean, there's a lot of support here for the eReader, and of course, you already mentioned saving and bringing your save to another friend's house, basically putting your character on a save so you could bring it to somewhere else and things like that. There's a lot that you can do, but none of those things. Those things are all just added on. They're pluses. You're not really fundamentally missing anything without them, which I think is good.
Yeah, and they're experimenting, right? The GameCube also had, for those who don't know, there was a controller that was a keyboard that I think Phantasy Star was like the main thing people used it for, to be honest, because it was such kind of an MMO. But it was definitely handy for letter writing in this game.
That's right. Yeah. It was basically the Wavebird, or the controller or whatever, but just with a keyboard in the middle. It just widened out and put this. I think the start button went up to the top or something, and then there's just this big keyboard right in the middle. So,
well, when you go to the keyboard in this game, it sort of physically represents.
It mirrors it. Yeah, for sure.
Looks like a squashed version of it. The interesting thing about the GBA connection, though, which I did have and leveraged quite a bit. I actually played Splinter Cell with that feature as well on the GameCube. There is an island that you go to in this game now, hopefully I'm not getting my Animal Crossings mixed up. I think this is correct, because, there's the dock out in the ocean that you've probably seen. There's a sign there, and the sign says something about the island. And so you actually can go and leave. If you hook your GameCube or your GBA up to the game, you can actually leave this space and go to that island. And I think there are coconuts there. There's some other things there that, to your point, you don't, you're not missing something. I think in this case you actually are. I think there are some unique items over there.
But you wouldn't miss it. But that's interesting, because I mean, the player wouldn't know that they're missing it. Is my point.
Right? No, it's not critical. Yeah,
right. But now I'm like, well, I still have a GBA.
Oh, you should do it if you can. Yeah, if you have
And I have a control. I have a
connection.
cable. I don't know if it connects to the. I don't know if I have a. I don't know if I have one that connects to the GameCube.
It was a specific. Yeah, it was a specific cable.
I'll have to look. I still have a cable upstairs. I'll have to look if it's that or if it's just. Oh no, I have that because it connects. It connected for the. What was that 4-player? Yeah, for the 4-sword. I think I have that upstairs. Yeah, I'll go look for it. Oh wow, that'd be wild.
You should do it. It's really neat.
If I still have that cable, I'll report next week. I've forgotten. I won't be able to stream that because it'll be on a different screen, presumably. Right? And I won't be able to capture that, but I will go check that out if I have it.
And I think there's some sort of interface on that game on the GBA as well that allows you to make garments and stuff more easily.
Oh, neat.
Like that. Not necessarily more easily, but it's a different, I don't remember the specifics of that, but they were dabbling in the eReader. Yeah, for sure. You can essentially upload before there was really uploading, right? Upload
right.
patterns and music.
Patterns and games and music and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Super weird. And I did all that stuff back
sort of like a pre Amiibo in some ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's basically like an RFID, except that it was just a so like a credit card reader. Basically, it was the eReader.
Yep.
Magnetic strip technology. So
they were. That's true. They were very. It was very because they used the eReader in multiple games. So and I had a bunch of those cards for different reasons. I'm sure they were a big Pokemon thing too. Fascinating game. So tell me about your one story we wanted to both share before we finish is our unique fruit stuff. So you got, and I think that'll segue for me to a letter I want to read from my mom.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, but you did get.
I did get a fruit. So I did something. I think. Oh, that was I had been fishing and I'd gotten a new fish and I was going down to the museum, but it was later in the day for me, and so I had done a lot of tasks. I wasn't gonna find any more fossils or anything like that, so I didn't need all my inventory space. So I was talking to animals on the way, and I ran into Cupcake, who was in the sort of square with the fountain. I'm not sure what Cupcake is, to be honest.
What? You can't tell? How funny. I can't remember. Is Cupcake maybe a
or cub? Maybe it's
it could be a cub.
It's a cub. Okay. Cupcake is a cub. Okay, she's snooty. She's a snooty cub, which is definitely true. She's definitely snooty. Anyway, I ran into Cupcake, and she's like, "Oh, you've got a killifish there," and I'm like, "I do," and I'm like, "Oh, could I have it?" And I'm like, well, I guess. I mean, I was going to go put it in my collection, but I'll get another one someday. And so she took it and she's like, well, here, then you can have this. It's special. And she gave me an apple. And I was like, yes.
Yep.
Thank goodness. Because, not a pear guy, but apples, man. I love me an apple. Honeycrisp season, best time of the year.
No, but that's not why you should be excited.
Well, I know I planted it.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got a little apple orchard going. It grew, and I had 3 more apples, and I planted those. We'll see what happens with those because those trees aren't looking so good. We'll see if they make it. I don't know.
Yeah.
At least the main one made it.
Yeah, the main one made it. 500 though, right? Like I think so. Each
something like that. They're probably worth more. I haven't sold any because I planted
any non-native fruit is worth 500 versus 100.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So you're rolling in it now once you get that orchard going. But
yeah, and and actually red snapper, which is the best fish I found to sell to him, that fluctuates.
Oh, really?
So like the first time I sold it to him, it was like 1,100, and I was like, oh man, that's a ton. And then I sold him one yesterday, and it was 3,000. I was like, no way, I should be fishing all day. But
I am terrible at ocean fishing. I don't know what it is.
It's hard. It's harder. They're less predictable. They don't bite for as long. Either. So they kind of dart in, and if you miss it, it's very quick. It's a very short window. So
Yeah, I'm terrible at it. I've forgotten how hard because they obviously over the course of the
I
game.
grew up on the ocean, so I'm just
Good there, yeah. That's your backstory. Yeah,
no, that's a true story. I mean, I grew up a little in New Hampshire, but also
okay,
on Cape Cod.
fair enough.
We were a quarter mile from the beach.
You're a natural fisherman.
Yep, it's true.
Yeah, so I had forgotten that that is another way to get the non-native fruit is from animals and stuff.
In my case, the forbidden fruit. Yeah.
Yeah. So right. The interesting, so I have a theory. I'm not sure. It's interesting thing happened to me that I'd never seen before. So because of my my dumb watering can theory,
Yeah, right.
that was, as you know, my memory's so bad. They introduced much later, so there are no watering cans in this game. Anyway, but because I was waiting, so I had got same thing had happened to me, but in my case it was a pear. One of the animals traded something in my inventory for a pear, so I was like, yes, I got 500 fruit. It's gonna be great. And this was like the first week or something that I got this. But what I did because of my watering can idiocy is that I didn't plant it right away. I kept it because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to die because it was critical that this lived, right?
Yeah, you gotta have it. Gotta have that money tree.
But then what happened was, and I don't know if this is the case, but because I didn't plant it, the game didn't know that I had another fruit, necessarily. I mean, it knew because it was my inventory, but it didn't see any trees. Maybe I'm giving the game too much credit, but so then another animal gave me an apple. So then I had a pear and an apple and peaches. And then another one gave me a cherry. So I actually had all the possible fruit that you could have in my inventory, but I wanted my watering can. But I never had that happen before. They usually give you one, right? And then you have the sort of secondaries. Maybe that was just by chance. That had never happened to me before, but I had never had the full set without.
I didn't even know you could have cherries.
Yeah. I mean, without going to another person's town,
right?
I've been able to do that. And so my thought was, I wonder if you don't plan it, they don't register that you have it. So they just kept giving me, and then I actually got a second apple from another animal. So I actually had 2 apples, a pear, and a cherry. I planted all of them; they all died.
Wow.
I realized the watering can wasn't a thing. And so I was like, well, I got to plant them. I hope one of these works out. So luckily yesterday I got a cherry from somebody, another cherry, and that one lived. So after all of that fiasco,
wow, the cherry that lived.
Cherry tree, and that's it. And it's not even fully grown. So, but so it's a funny. I don't know why I lucked out, maybe, or maybe.
I don't even know where I would put more fruit types at this point. I don't. I guess I'd have to find a space where I could clear away. I'd have to clear away some more stuff. I did clear a little bit for the pear tree, and just actually to make it easier to get to Tom's. There was a number of trees that were just like really crowded, and getting over there was a pain in the neck. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, once you're playing this game, my memory is playing it for like a year, for over the course of a year, where you're really spending so much time in the space, you're kind of fine tuning it, like I remember chopping down most trees and replacing them in exactly where I wanted them to be. Cause you
right.
Can buy trees at Nooks, and like, for instance, I wanted mostly evergreen trees, and stuff like that. So I really went way too deep, which, as I mentioned with New Horizons, like they clearly saw that people really like, terraforming, not only in other games, but in this game. So, so let me read you my,
let's hear this letter from Mom, because I think I may have had 2 letters from Mom, over the course of the time, but yeah.
I think this was maybe my 3rd or 4th. So it's written on butterfly paper. The paper, the stationery in this game is also pretty cool. They have quite a variety. I'm still seeing some that I've never seen before. My dear Snake, as a mother, I'll never let go of my precious memories of you, like those fabulous, fun-filled 46 hours I spent in labor. You were worth it. You were worth every minute, weren't you? ? Mom. I just
Wow. So your mom's Eva?
yeah, right. What? Yeah. Oh man, the boss. It's the boss, right? Like, could be
No.
so many answers. I don't remember.
Oh, no. If you're Snake, no. Solid Snake's mom is Eva. It was Lee Merriweather. It's in MGS4, which I'm playing right now.
Right.
And there's this whole thing with her in like a church or something, and she tells you how she's your mom, and just goes.
Well, I
on
might be
and on.
playing Big Boss though, so I'm a different Snake. But yeah,
But that wouldn't be the boss, though. No way.
no, they were. She trained him, but no,
Yes,
you don't know who Big Boss's real mother is. I don't think.
I don't.
We digress. I just love that. Like,
that is amazing. I mean, that is the sort of thing, though, that I think some moms would say. Like, yeah, I don't know that my mother ever said that. Anything like that about labor, I can't remember.
But it's a joke. I mean, it is.
But
joke,
it is his joke. Yeah,
hours in labor that moms like to, bring it for fun or whatever, or guilt. Ridiculous
guilt. Guilt, actually, yeah, I think is the connection I've heard more with that. You're not gonna do X, Y, or Z after I spent.
Right. All the other ones. Actually, I take that back. One of the unique fruits that I got was from mom. She sent me actually the first apple was from her. She's like, I thought you would like this. But yeah, they're never usually that cheeky, so I thought that was fun to read. But it is neat that, that I think the concept of having your mother write you letters in this game is also a tell obviously at the kind of thing that they're trying to do. For the sort of not just demographic, but just the tone of it. It's very interesting to me. So yeah,
absolutely. That's not the sort of thing you get in The Sims, for example. So,
right.
In terms of tone, I mean, they have plenty of jokey stuff, but it's at a different pitch. So there's definitely something unique here.
Well, and it reflects, like, I forget if we talked about this on air or off air, but did we talk about sort of the inspiration behind part of the game inspiration as far
I think
as
we did last week, in terms of the director having, wanting to sort of capture the feeling of, moving to a new town, a new village, a small village, when he was a child. Which,
right, and having your mom, once you leave, your small town to go to the big city or whatever, having your mom write you, for a lot of people can be a nice sense of comfort and stuff. So it's kind of reflects, at least in that particular worldview and perspective, it makes sense if that's the sort of inspiration that he was going for.
Oh, absolutely, and those are the sorts of things that you'll see in Japanese anime about more anime movies, not so much series. I'm not as familiar with series, but this is the sort of thing you might see in something like, I don't know. This is not a good example because I don't think it happens, but in like The Girl Who Could Stop Time or something like that. But these movies that are like, they're an hour and a half, they have sort of this sort of tone, somewhat nostalgic tone. And it's not uncommon for people to write letters to one another, and have animation playing while somebody's voiceover reads the letter, whether it's the person receiving it or the person when they're writing it, and that's definitely something I encounter in that culture more than I do in films in our own culture. So for sure, yeah. All right. Well, I think we'll leave it there. We've got no singing reviews for Tim this week.
Oh my
as far
that just went well beyond where I thought. Because the video happened after, right?
I made that the next morning. I just clipped your audio out, and
I shouldn't even mention the video for anyone who hadn't found it yet. But
if you don't follow us on Twitter, see, this is a perfect segue.
Sure.
If you want to follow, if you want to send us email, you can send that to devgameclub@gmail.com. We love all your letters and try to respond to everyone, and most of them we read here on the cast, as we do your reviews, such as last week's singing review from Violet B. Trudell. Thanks so much, Violet. Of course, you can. I guess. I guess we should repeat. We kind of threw it in there in the middle of the episode, but this next week we're going to start playing with time a little bit, and do a final week of sort of speed running different times of the game, because we're not going to play this for a whole year. But in order to see different seasons in particular and a few different events, I definitely would like to see Halloween. I imagine that's a thing, and I'd like to see the sort of Christmas time, since we played Shenmue. I want to see how this one deals with it. But also for me, different times of day, because I'm not playing at different times of day. I play on a pretty regular schedule. I'd like to set my clock just around to see if I have the opportunity to catch some different insects and things like that. There's no way I'll finish out the collection this time. What in particular do you want to time travel to?
I don't know if this was in another one of them or not, but I do remember 4th of July being fun.
That's a good one.
They do some fireworks kind of stuff. But yeah, Halloween, Christmas. The other thing, I think, to retain some of your sort of, to not have spoilers for you, what I might do is I want to go and look up the list of holidays again. Because you remember, like we had during our playthrough, we had the spring cleaning day,
right?
And in that case, that was the only time I think you can get the model of the dump that I think I mentioned. You know, the miniature
to clean up.
Yeah. So there's certain even pieces of furniture and things like that you can only get during some of these holidays. Like obviously Christmas, I think there's some obvious ones. So I might want to I'll look them up on our behalf, and then maybe I'll throw some your way because there's some unexpected ones that they added in that are sort of Animal Crossing specific.
Oh, cool.
The original, the obvious.
Oh, New Year's was another one that I thought would probably be pretty good in this, just because I know that that's kind of a big, a big thing in Asian cultures generally. I mean, it's a big thing here as well, but they have sort of their own celebration. So I thought it might be different and interesting. I don't know, but that's definitely not a thing I did in the past. But that was another one I thought of that I was like, that I don't know whether they localize so much that I wonder. It's a shame, because that was one thing I was like, I'd rather see that unlocalized. I'd like to see what they get for those sorts of things.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they may have one based on a different calendar on the Asian versions. Yep. But I mean, talk about another sort of influence, obviously not directly correlated, but MMOs adopted obviously the real world holiday based events too, and in that regard, this game was ahead of its time.
Absolutely. Right. This is the single player multiplayer offline game.
Right. SPMO.
I don't know. We'll have to workshop that one some more. Okay. Well, back to the outro. I guess I'll repeat. You can shoot us email at devgameclub@gmail.com, and of course, we love all of our reviews. You can find us on the web at devgameclub.com, and on Twitter at devgameclub, where you can find a video of my co-host
at Tim Longo Jr. with a JR at the end.
My online presence is mostly limited to Twitch these days. I've gotten to the fourth boss in Metal Gear Solid 4, so pretty soon I think I'm going to be moving on to Epic Mickey for the Wii. So that has been what has been getting the votes. So you can see that real soon as well. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton and was commissioned by friend of the cast, Aaron Evers. Thanks so much to both of them. Have fun making a whirlwind visit to all the holidays this week, and good night.
Good night.